Haven, welcome to the Class of 92 podcast. It's so nice to see you.
Likewise, I've been watching, and now it's really fun to be at the one-on-one with you.
Yeah, well, you told me before we started recording that you've listened to all of these, and I'm so honored that you've done that. Tell me what drew you in.
Oh my God, are you kidding? It's so fun. Combine the WhatsApp group. It's just like hearing what everyone's up to, and then just the little I don't know, Exeter pieces flit in and out of it, and sort of similar experiences and how people feel. And I mean, every time I listen, there's something there I'm like, oh, wow, me too. Or I've done that. Or, yeah, it's been so much fun.
I'm really glad to hear that. It's very fulfilling, and it's a lot of fun for me, frankly. Just a huge amount of fun to get to connect with everybody again and to catch up, So that's, I think, one of the several kind of reasons I wanted to do this, and maybe it's one of the reasons people are finding it engaging. So catch us up. Hey, tell us everything. Like, last I saw you probably was 92, somewhere in front of the Academy building on some hot June morning getting graduated. I noticed you've got your Exeter diploma on the back wall there in your office.
Funny, it's the only diploma I have.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't even know where my Brown or Berkeley ones are.
Is that right? So what does that say about your life in education? You've had a lot of education and you've gone to some great schools. How come only Exeter has made the wall?
Because it was what formed me. It's what started everything. I mean, the others were great and wonderful experiences, but I mean, we grew up there, and it's been so foundational. And I mean, it's really funny, even just looking at people's LinkedIn profiles. I mean, I make sure, and on my CV, Exeter is there every single time. And when you do find someone who's gone, it's just this bright spot. It's so much fun. It's very weird because here, especially Davis, parts outside of the Bay Area and California, people don't go to boarding school. And so, it's really weird to even say it, but I'm proud of it. It's that made me who I am.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of people feel similarly to you. So tell us though, where are you from? How did you end up at Exeter?
So I grew up in northwestern Connecticut, Litchfield County area, which is where, all the New Yorkers have their country homes. But I was the townie, I guess.
Okay.
And I don't know. I mean, I went to Exeter. It was I was at a private school that was a boys' boarding school and a co-ed day school, which was really weird. That went through ninth grade, like middle school. And so a lot of the kids, and that's the area, that's where Hotchkiss is, Salisbury, a lot of schools right in that area. So it kind of was one of those things where a lot of kids ended up going to boarding school. And so I wanted to, and I could have stayed. My school went through ninth grade, but I didn't want to stay through ninth grade. So eighth grade did went to the admissions, met with Jack Herney. It was a snowstorm. I mean, I remember going for that interview. And then, yeah, Exeter, it's so funny. I applied to a few schools, and the thing, which is just in hindsight ridiculous, that got me most excited about Exeter was that they had a dance every weekend.
Really?
I was like, yes, that is me.
That's hilarious.
A dance every weekend.
That's how they sold you on Exeter, huh? A gym in the stinky old Thompson gymnasium every weekend?
Oh my God. I mean, I don't think I ever danced at any of those dances. I think I, stood on the sidelines and yelled, go Shags, go.
Or I think they might have also done those in Elm Street at night.
Yeah, exactly.
Closing down Elm Street for the dance. Yeah, I was always a wallflower. I would never dance. You would never catch me dancing. So what dorm are you in?
Dunbar.
You were in Dunbar.
In Dunbar.
Okay. And so you were a four-year senior. And who were the other Dunbar four-year seniors?
The posse was Tina Labrie and Megan Hall and Katarina, or 4 years. Well, so this is the crazy thing. I started in Hoyt.
Okay.
I was in Hoyt my first year, prep year.
All right.
And actually became really good friends with Sarah Netter, who was in Dunbar, and I didn't have the best experience in Hoyt. So I was one of the few people that did change. So I moved to Dunbar, went from small dorm on the wrong side of campus to big dorm on the better.
On the right side of campus, yeah. I kind of agree with you. I guess the bigger dorms are on that side, aren't they? Now
Yeah,
that I'm thinking about it.
a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and became Dunbarite and loved it.
Yeah, well, Amy Park was one of them.
Amy,
Sarah,
yes.
Tina, Megan.
Mhm.
Who else?
Shauna,
Let's see.
Roxanne Gay.
Donna's 4 year.
Was Nikki Barfield 4 year?
I believe she was, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and she contacted me a couple days ago and said she had something to say, that she wants to come on the podcast. So I'm excited to have her. It's really fun when people raise their hand and want to come on and talk about things and talk about their story.
So
Super
fun.
fun, super
Yeah.
fun. So I remember her fondly as well.
Emily Hudson.
Oh, that's right, of course. Up in
Yeah.
Portland, building the future over there at Intel. If she's still at Intel in Silicon, I think that's what she's up to. And certainly, you guys were right next door to us in Webster. What do you remember the most?
I think like as soon as Webster and what do you remember? It reminded me of hoeing. Oh, if
What is that? What do you mean?
I don't
Excuse
remember
me. I'm sorry. I don't
Oh
know
my
what that
God, it's been
is.
way too many years. Running around the dorm naked outside
Oh,
at night.
okay. I'm sorry. To my innocent ears, I'm sorry. I didn't know. But no, please go right ahead.
Yeah,
Explain.
no, and I was too shy, so I was the door holder,
Okay.
which is great. Really good to look back on that. Sneaking out, midnight and running with ho ho written
Oh
across
my God.
people's chests.
So let's describe this for a second. I definitely remember this. I didn't know that it was Dunbar. I believe Bancroft had done this
Bancroft did
also.
it as well.
Okay. I don't know if Eamon did it. We'll have to ask Tinio. I just interviewed Tinio. I really don't know if Eamon ever did it. They probably did. What is hoeing? Just describe this for us in full detail then.
Yeah, it was just streaking a dorm essentially. So
Streaking. Now that's the word I recall.
So, everyone would take off their clothes and then, there was writing of ho, ho, ho across the chest, usually like lipstick.
Okay.
And then it was run around the dorm as fast as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this was usually after 10 p.m., right? After
Oh,
going to
always
bed.
after 10 p.m., which is why my role as door holder was so important.
And how did you not get caught? How did 70 girls streak?
It was less than, it wasn't the full dorm.
Okay.
I remember, hearing Reverend Thompson yell out the window.
I think I remember this.
There was some hiding in bushes, and it definitely it was fast and in and out, and
oh my goodness. So did you circle Webster?
Yes.
Oh, thank you for that. That's about as much as I'm sure a lot of us ever saw at that age. So thanks for the early education.
Yep. So there we go. Haven's Exeter memories.
I love that you just told the streaking story as your first memory of
right
4
as
years
my
at
first
Exeter.
memory after I announced that I went to Exeter for the dance. I mean, seriously.
So far, Haven, extremely low bar. Let's keep building.
In both of those stories, I was the watcher, not even the participator.
Okay.
So it was aspirational Haven. I mean, that's what this is what I've learned. Like Exeter was a lot of aspirational Haven. Like I learned a lot there, but it took me years before I could apply it.
Is that so? Wow. So in what way? What was something that you've got there, but you didn't apply it till later?
I think just, we had to talk around the Harkness table, but it was years before I could, sitting around the table and having something to say, I can still feel my heart pound, and being like, okay, I know I'm going to say something. When's the right time? Like getting up the courage to be able to say that. I am not someone for whom that came easy, and just like throw out my opinion. And even after I graduated, I taught classes on green roofs for a little while. And so I would get up in front of people, for the first, I don't know how many years that I was doing it, I had to wear turtlenecks because I get this, I start blushing. I get this red thing that like comes up and goes all up my neck. And I like that sort of thing would just make me so nervous. But it all started at Exeter. Mm-hmm. And now, I'm teaching regularly. I'm in front of students all the time. I'm giving lectures and it doesn't scare me. and it's fun and interesting, and I wish more people would do it. But it really was that sort of forcing myself, in having to do it at Exeter,
Hmm.
that changed, and not being good at it. I
Hmm.
mean, really not being one of those people that was natural at just like, I mean, talking Webster. I forget what I was in one religion class. One of them, it was the ethics class, and the joke the joke in Webster, there were a bunch of people like Eric Dimitrov, people older, than us in it. And the joke was just, anytime Haven said something, disagree with her, just
I love it.
flustered her.
That sounds like such a Dimitrov thing to do. I know exactly who you're talking about. He was an upper when we were preps, and he was quite cheered and intimidating. If he ever hears
Terrified.
this, I just want him to know we thought he was a challenge. Okay, but I hope he's cool now. I'm sure he is. He was so harsh, but
Terrifying, but also like great, forced to come out of my
I
shell.
suppose
And
so. I can just see somebody from Webster coming up with this as a
right,
game and
right.
doing this to you. Um, and I'm glad you're gracious about it and see it for what like benefit. I guess it brought you out of your shell in some way.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. It's like a perfect prep school kind of like really smart and kind of a super sarcastic kind of thing to be doing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Which
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, there was a lot of that.
There
And that,
was that whole sarcasm, that witty, very intelligent,
oh,
overly articulate sarcasm, that self-assuredness, you know?
yeah, I mean, and it was one of those things like some kids just had it, men, and they were just like amazing. Us, me, just sat and watched and learned,
Oh my
and
gosh.
eventually, I
So,
hope, got better at
so
it.
how would you describe yourself when you came into school? And did that change over the 4 years?
Definitely. I mean, I was so shy at Exeter, so timid. And just like the self confidence wasn't there. So much of it is puberty, all of that, but definitely just like sort of worried so much about what everyone thought and terrified to sort of do my own things, all very much fit that like quiet, shy, but very, I think, confident in my skill, like academic skills, and I feel like that was definitely a strength of Exeter too. Even when I left, that's like my sort of ability to do whatever it is that I wanted to do. That like Exeter just strengthened that. It was like, of course you can do that. You know how to answer this or go into an interview. You're prepared for that. I mean, how many times were we called the future leaders of America?
Hmm.
Um, and so I always had the confidence in my abilities, just not as much, my and taking a stance or speaking out. And even so, it's still like that sort of stuff terrifies me, but much better at it.
So by the time you were a senior, were you more vocal and sort of having that sense
But
of,
I feel like, I don't know, I bloomed. I hate that word. Definitely, it was more in college that I got a little more self assured.
okay.
And I mean, I do. I think that Exonians are intimidating, and not in a bad way, but you're surrounded by these insanely smart kids, know what they're doing, and when I compare it, I have a daughter who's a junior in high school
Mhm.
right now, and she just seems like a high schooler that you see on like in the TV shows, right? Like that's like
Yeah.
these Exeter kids. It just seemed totally different in this like what we talked about, how we compared. It was like all-nighters, and
Hmm.
we were doing all-nighters because we were studying, not because we were necessarily, I
Right.
mean,
Now that you're a mom with your own teenager and you look at how precocious we were as a group, as a cohort, does that strike you as problematic?
no, I actually think it's such a good thing. I mean, what I see now is this coddling of teenagers and their parents telling them exactly what to do, doing college applications. I thought that was so interesting that Lindsay mentioned, like we're doing college applications. I hear that all the time, like doing them with the kids and monitoring everything and being part of everything. And I just think we're turning our kids into these little robots
Hmm.
that are just told they just want to be told what to do, and they want to be, and get bullet points. And we didn't have that at Exeter. And I think that was like one of the greatest things for me. We had to figure it out ourselves, and we had to make those decisions.
I feel you on that. I have a 7 and a 10-year-old daughter, and I think we're still early-ish, kind of feeling that out as they get older. I think that maybe becomes more of an issue. But certainly there is this idea that this generation is surrounded by helicopter parents. Jack Herney had this term he called snowplow parents.
Which was crazy. I've used it everywhere now.
Really?
I'm obsessed with it.
Jack, no, he's still teaching us new things.
Yeah, I had never heard it, and I've been like literally telling everyone. I'm like, this is the new term. It's no longer about helicopter.
You can just imagine.
Further.
Yeah, you can just imagine being an educator. Spending 50 years at a school and going from like analog to digital in that time span, and all of a sudden your parents are like literally on every little thing, commenting, texting, posting, calling, in the dorms, on the fields, like all over the place.
Yeah.
Whereas earlier in his career, it was like they might get a phone call or a mail once in a while.
Yeah, and you couldn't. I mean, again, you were in Webster, Dunbar. We had 2 phones for 64 girls. Yeah. And so if there was someone in a line, you left the phone off the hook to get the next person. And so like parents couldn't call in.
I hate to admit this, but I have this Find My feature on my phone, on my iPhone. I track my girls no matter where they are. I mean, like I've got little Apple tags on the little girls. I'm like, where are they? Where are they right now? I've got them down to a few centimeters on this map, and I can ping them and I can locate them. So I think the technology enables the helicoptering.
I think I just read this morning, they're trying to ban cell phones from public schools in New York City. The loudest, most vocal people against it are parents, because they won't be able to track their kids during the day.
I had another amazing conversation with Matt Fate. So I have this embarrassment of riches in the can that I still need to edit. And some of these go 3 hours long, and it's really actually makes it more work for me when they go that long. And I have to cut and splice and find the right things. I ask forgiveness now for everybody for how long it's taking to get some of these out. But he and I were going to talk about VC investing and AI and in the tech sector, which is my field. I'm an operator. I've been in marketing in software and tech in the Bay Area for 25 years now. And he's been on the other side of the country investing in tech for the same amount of time. So I was super interested to go have this conversation with him about what's it like to invest and where are we now with AI. Instead of that, we ended up talking about being dads. And we ended up talking about this scourge of the smartphone and what it's doing to our children and how to manage that. And he actually mentioned this to me, that in some schools they have a no smartphone policy and you just have to put it away. He had a lot of really great advice for how to kind of deal with this whole smartphone, social media situation. Since his kids are probably 10, 12 years older than mine, he's gone through it when it was earlier, in the mid-10s with having younger kids. So there's a whole episode that I'm planning to release on parenting with social media and smartphones.
Awesome.
Featuring Matt Fates.
Excellent.
By the time people hear this one, that one will have already been out.
See? Perfect.
I do care a lot about this. It's coming up so much, and it's like so hard to parent. It's probably hard anyway. I have a lot more. I'm not sure if you would find this for yourself. I have a lot more empathy for my parents now than I did when I was growing up. And I can finally understand how hard it is, how much your heart walks out the door every time they leave for school, and how you're constantly putting them ahead of yourself and worried about them and thinking about them and so on. So I have a lot more I give them a lot more leeway now, now that they're much older, and I can totally get it. At the same time, we live in this whole other digital era, partly because of my industry and Matt's industry, and parenting and being in touch and engagement and communication is so different.
Yeah.
Right? We had 3 channels and these phones that you're describing growing up. And my kid is so addicted to the tablet and the smartphone, and so am I. By the way,
yeah, I know that's the hardest part. Is
terribly addicted to these.
Do as I say, not as I do.
So parenting this stuff has come up a lot, And I'm kind of this local speaker in this nonprofit out here in the Tri-Valley. And I'll go to Pleasanton Library, to places like San Ramon and Danville, and talk to other parents and speak on panels about how do we deal with this. And it's a group called Team Esteem. So Teen Esteem tries to educate parents, and they basically say, do not give your kid a smartphone until they are 15 or 16 years old. That's their new recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the parents before us just kind of didn't think about it, and fifth graders are walking around with iPhones.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so then their nervous system gets wired around these things. And so you take them away, and it's like you just took away a credit, and they go nuts. That's what happens to our kid, even when we try to limit it. So kind of like the central parenting problem for us right now. What has been your central parenting issue, if you've had one?
I mean, I would agree. And I think that it's getting my kids off the phones and outside, which is sort of like this perfect segue for what it is that I try and do, which is, so much of the stuff that I'm focusing on is this concept on about the healing power of nature and how it is so important. We saw it during the pandemic, how people just needed, the rise in gardening, how people were going outside, how parks were overrun. I mean, all of the, just how important it is to spend time outside. And so that's where I've been putting all of my effort, is like, how do we create spaces for people to be outside and engage with each other, with nature, and have that sort of community that's not based on a phone. Again, so much easier said than done. But like, if we can create spaces that people want to be in that are just fun and engaging and cool, then I feel that's how we get people outside.
Yeah.
And that, really start creating these communities, understanding that yes, the digital is going to be there, but can we at least get people like walk through spaces not having, just being on their tires.
Yeah. I walk my dog around the neighborhood, and I'm looking at my phone the whole time.
Right? You just see, especially, in a college town where out crosswalks on bikes and car, everyone, it's phone or waiting for the bus. I mean, you see people outside waiting for a bus, and every single one of them is just looking at their phone.
It's like an addiction for sure, for the whole society. In some ways, we even think of it now for kids, especially. It's like the new tobacco.
Yeah.
It's really that bad. And I think I've been smoking 2 or 3 packs a day, frankly, of this stuff for 20 years, at least. I was like the original addicted guy to the Palm Pilot, to the Palm 5 that came out in 2000.
God, yes.
It's not something I have any real mastery over. I want to talk about that, but I think, as you say, it's a good segue for the audience to know that Haven Kiers, our wonderful classmate, left Exeter like we all did in 92 and went to Brown. Graduated from Brown with probably like 30 other of our classmates.
Ton,
right?
yeah.
And I have all kinds of friends that went to Exeter or didn't, that went to Brown and graduated around 96. And I'm sure we know tons of them together. So I have a whole like name game to play with you.
Excellent.
But after that, you went to Berkeley and got a master's in landscape architecture. And I think you got that in 99. And then after that, was there any other like graduate work that you did, or did you go straight into teaching from there?
No, I mean, so you make it sound like it was such a progression. I actually did what I thought what I was supposed to do after and followed that whole route. And I went and worked for Anderson Consulting.
I'm not expecting you to say that.
Yeah. And again, I mean, Lindsay's was the most recent podcast, but she and I were neighbors in Beacon Hill. And I did the consulting thing because that's what you did. It was either consulting or investment banking. Those were the two things that you did out of college. So I wore a suit and lived in Beacon Hill, got my whole, kind of that yuppie dream, and was miserable. And it turned that I'm not meant for finance or consulting. I never even tried finance. God, I would not have done well. And found myself in Boston instead of the consulting thing. I started my own business called Urban Gardens, doing window boxes. Like just going around Beacon Hill and redoing people's window boxes. And discovered that landscape architecture was this profession which I had no idea. I had no idea what landscape architecture was, and couldn't believe how cool when I discovered that it was, it was gardening, which I loved and had done, like, working in summers, doing maintenance and just kind of garden. My mom had done some garden design, so helping her. But that I could go back to school for this, where it was gardens and plants and horticulture and that sort of outdoor stuff that I loved. But it was also integrating history, and you had to be good at graphics and design. And so it was about being creative and, marketing, selling people on your product. And I mean, all of this stuff. And that it was this master's program. So I tried the corporate life, didn't like it, decided to, try my hand at landscape architecture, went to Berkeley for 3 years, got a master's in landscape architecture. And then it worked for a landscape architecture firm for a couple of years in Sausalito. Ended up going then to the Eastern Sierra for a few years, to the Bishop area, and worked for the county government there. I worked as like city planner, which also was it was fine, but it was great because that was like early 20s, and it was, the Eastern Sierra. So, we were climbing. I was there with my husband. I got married there. And, so we were climbing and skiing and doing like, living the outdoor life, and then had like our professional jobs. And that was awesome. And then my husband ended up applying for grad school at Davis. And so the plan was to go to Davis for his grad school for 3 years tops, and then go back to the Bay Area, do something. Grad school turned into PhD for him and postdoc. I was working, had kids. Davis is great for the kids, one of those like good school system. We're all very pleased living in our cute little college town, all of that. Yeah. And so then I started working at the Arboretum that's here on campus, and kept showing up, kind of offering to teach classes. And just so I started working as a lecturer here at Davis, and literally just kept being like, hey, it's me, Haven, like, got anything? And what's amazing is, well, two things. One is that for landscape architecture is considered a professional degree. And so it's the terminal degree is a master's, even though more and more they're looking for PhDs to take professor positions. It's not required. So the fact that I was able to get a tenure track position with a master's degree is unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they had a position that opened up, and it was focusing on plants. And I had been working at the Arboretum, and I knew everyone on campus. So I just kind of, like I said, just kept being like, hey guys, it's me. And
Persistence.
yeah, persistent. Yeah. So I've been here 6 years now at Davis, and I just got tenure last year.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
like legit. And
Congratulations.
yeah, landscape architecture professor.
Wow. But is this a typical sort of publisher parish type environment for that type of job?
So, I mean, so that's the crazy thing about my position, like in the program I'm in. So I'm in the landscape architecture program, which is part of the human ecology department, which means we're also with like the human development folks and community development folks. But the bigger part of that is that we're in the College of Agriculture, which is odd. Usually design programs aren't always in colleges of ag. And the College of Ag, Davis is an R1 university. So it's a lot of, the good thing about my job is that we get some credit for creative works. So if we're doing like designing things and, creating installations and that sort of thing, that counts, but mostly it's publishing.
Oh,
And
really?
so, yeah, I have to write stuff.
Okay. Well, you obviously already did, and they gave you enough to
It
get
was,
your
it was
tenure.
enough. And I'm really at promoting.
Is that
So,
right?
yeah,
Is that right? Does that have anything to do with the goats and the sheep? Because
it's cheap.
we might
No
get into
goats.
that.
Well, yeah. And
I just, what's fun about this is you see about people in the periphery, kind of in the corner of your eye. And for years, I'm like, huh, Haven, she's doing something with goats and
sheep.
sheep and I don't know why. Oh, is it sheep? Okay. Sorry.
It's cheap.
And like,
I'll explain.
landscaping, and she's somewhere, something like 40, 50 miles east of me, somewhere out there where it's really hot.
Yeah.
And UC Davis is a very famous school out here for wine growers, right? So Robert Mondavi family, which is the big wine family, is one of the big benefactors out there at UC Davis. So if you want to learn how to become a viticulturalist, right, or in general,
Mhm.
agriculture is
Yep.
what UC Davis is famous for.
Yep.
Can you talk?
And we have a great beer program. We now have a new coffee center as well.
Okay.
But yeah, all within
Yeah.
the agriculture. And then
Cool.
we have big ag, but also sustainable ag. We have a student farm. So it's known. Davis was actually founded as the farm for UC Berkeley. Yeah. So Berkeley had its thing, and then it had like its farm campus, and that was UC Davis. And then UC Davis became its own campus, but it
Mhm.
is it's a land grant university.
Interesting.
Like R1 is research one, so like the highest levels of research universities. So
Okay.
like tier one in research.
Okay. Okay. Got it. I didn't know about that designation. So, okay. So what's the deal with the sheep, and connect us back? Because obviously you're super passionate, and it's what's so fun to see is how you found your thing, you found what you wanted. Because I'm tempted to ask you, well, why didn't you like Anderson Consulting? Why didn't you like white collar professional services? I think I know the answer, but why don't you give me a quick reply? Like, then how did you shift gears? Certainly, I would love to know how you got the idea of window boxes, and you even made any money doing that. I applaud the entrepreneurship, but at the same time, it's like, how did you put it all together and get into this ecological outdoor space environments from Anderson Consulting?
Yeah, the Anderson Consulting was just that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And as soon as I realized that it's not, it wasn't what I wanted to do, and that I wasn't going to end up, you know, in one of those careers that everyone else, it seemed like, was going into. And I wasn't, when I discovered design and the fact that it allowed you to come, I think it all comes to this idea of like, I guess I'm a maximizer. My major at Brown was international relations, because I loved how it took so many different majors. I got to do poli sci, I got to do history, I had to know a language, I had to do economics, and landscape architecture is like that, where I can bring in all of these different aspects and put them together. And so I'm not good at just focusing on one thing and being super niche about it. I want to be able to just sort of be like, oh, this is really interesting, and go that way. And so with landscape architecture, I can do the planting stuff. I still get to go outside. We have a courtyard here that I designed with classes like over a period of 10 years, and I spent the weekend weeding it. I like the applied practical being able to be outside part. And the 9 to 5 suit thing was just never me.
Mhm.
I had to get it out of my system.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really love being able to take all of these different ideas and then come up with sort of one umbrella concept. And that's what I'm really good at, is like, how do you come up with this concept that then provides fun and excitement and engagement at so many different levels and for so many different pieces, so that you are incorporating, ecological aspects, and you are like, aesthetics is huge, right? I'm a designer. I want things to be pretty. I want something to look really good, but also making it a place that people want to hang out and spend time in. And so I think I've naturally been drawn into sort of this like community engagement, making spectacles, and veering away from, oh, let's just make a landscape that's pretty, or like do a, corporate like campus or things like that. But how do we like bring people in? Like for me, the interpretive sign is my nemesis. I think that's the most boring thing in the world, right? I mean, like, cool, it gives you bullet points and it tells you what you're looking at, but so much better to actually be able to be in the space and understand it based on the plants that are there, the activities that you can do and the things. So I guess for me, like the sheep just ended up, it was totally random. I'm not like one of those kids that wanted to be a vet when I was young, or have always loved farm animals or did 4-H. I mean, there's nothing about that. The reality is, I read an article about sheep mowing underneath the Eiffel Tower. And I thought that was like the sexiest thing that I'd ever heard. I was like,
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. The word sexy is what you thought. For real?
yes, right? Chic and sexy. Like
Okay.
this is, think about that. It's like the Eiffel Tower, but it's like being mowed by sheep. Like you
Okay.
don't have your ugly little like guy in his suit
Huh.
mowing.
Okay.
You've got like you're bringing in nature, and it's like they're doing it's so cool.
Okay.
Like that is such a good image.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Skeptical. This is why
It's just
super
Paris
away
being the city of romance, right? If I could ever
from,
get my wife there,
right.
I'm gonna have
And
a
how
different.
much more, how cool would it be? You would tell that story. Your wife would tell the story. Oh my God, when we went to the Eiffel Tower, can you believe there were sheep grazing?
I'll grant you that it sounds very cool.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
When you're driving on the highway and you see the goats and the sheep and the hills alongside clearing out
Mhm.
all of the fire stuff, do you slow down?
Okay, so now that you mention it, I would definitely point it out to the kids. I would
Yes.
definitely say, "Hey kids, look at the sheep. Hey
We're
kids,
not
look
talking
out the
about the
window."
train. We're not talking about Amtrak. Sheep, it's a higher
Yeah.
level.
Okay. So this is such a cool story, and you're probably one of the coolest people we graduated with, Haven. I'm gonna put you in the top 10 here for
Yeah,
sure.
no, but I'm different than the typical. I
Okay.
don't even know what private equity is.
Okay. Okay. Probably most of us.
I don't know. It's been mentioned a lot.
Well, it is mentioned. Private equity is a thing. Lindsay was talking about it, I think, in her. Um,
Sean was talking about it. Lots
uh,
of people talking about it.
Sean certainly
Private
was.
equity. Oh,
Yeah.
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 Well, you used your VC term. Like, yeah, I don't do that.
Uh,
I talk cheap.
Well, these are the words of the Bay Area for sure. Some of
Uh-huh.
these, but I have always had a kind of hobby, sort of view of architecture. I think
Uh-huh.
because the library at Exeter was so incredible, such a work of art,
Unbelievable.
right? I mean, truly, truly special beyond anything anywhere, frankly. I still think that that one piece of architecture on the campus is just like a global jewel. And so it probably inculcates an appreciation for architecture, probably in all of us. And so I've always had a kind of hobbyist view. Also worked in real estate and kind of started having a sense of the importance of space, right? And so I had a loft in the Mission, which had 17-foot ceilings and floor to ceiling windows. And so having that much light in my life, I felt like it made a difference in
Yeah.
my well-being. And we have a house in Pleasanton, which is more of a 1950s house. And I've learned to love it. And I'm very happy here with the kids. And you want different things. Like we have a pool and it gets to over 100 degrees out here. It's like India level hot out in Pleasanton and probably in Davis too,
And
right?
yeah.
Compared to San Francisco, Oakland, where it's 60s and 70s. You don't even have air conditioning. So you just need kind of different things in different geographies. So I've learned to love this, but the feeling of space is something I grew sensitive to over time. So tell us about the architecture aspect, because you mentioned this a little bit. That landscape architecture isn't just pretty gardens
Hmm.
or corporate campus somewhere, or it's something bigger around the experience of space. And it's not just a placard that you can read to kind of look at the Latin or Greek kind of origin names of the different species of plants and so forth. So what is it for you? Like, evoke that for us.
I mean, it's about how do you think like a huge empty plaza that's got nothing in it, no trees, it's just wide open. I mean, it's great for someone to stand up on a platform and call forth crowd. When is this happening,
Mhm.
right? But then think about if you're adding trees and you've got little nooks. One of the big principles in landscape architecture is this idea of prospect and refuge, where and what they feel most comfortable with is having a spot where they feel like they're protected, but they have a view out of things. So imagine like sitting on like the top of a hill on a bench, with trees kind of behind you, so you've got this wonderful shady space, but then you can look out and you can see people pass by. Keeping something like that in mind, like spaces for introverts and spaces for extroverts, right? Where are those places where you can pause and sit and sort of hang out by yourself? And where are the places where you're sort of, like the Webster bench, where it really is about being out there? I mean, it's all about that. It is not prospect and rest. It's all, you're just sitting out there. You are like watching and judging everyone who goes by. If the Webster bench had like a little, I don't know, like gazebo surrounding it, it would
Hmm.
be a very different kind of there. So, and then how do you use the lines of the buildings to continue that into, or the idea of the building, and use the landscape to support the building. But spending time, there's just so much, like there's so much research right now about the value of spending time in nature, and how being outside helps reduce stress and anxiety and improves cognition, and like all of this amazing. It's like the nature RX concept. And so there's all of this about that. And so then for me, it's like, how do you translate that? Because we're not all going to have access to Muir Woods or these natural or Yosemite, parks that are just like fantastic and beautiful. How do we create those spaces? So, like, good example, Bay Area is like Crissy Field, right? Where it's this wonderful park that looks like it's natural and it's just been allowed to go back to the way it was. And the reality is, those were all landscape architects that spent, grading it and hours and years figuring out exactly what are those plants and how are they going to grow and where are those spaces and where are people going to walk through and what's going to be left open. And so, and it really then becomes sort of this way to, for me, bring in the ecology of the site, and really think about how can we restore biodiversity, and how can we bring in native plants and wildlife, but do it in a way that also allows for humans to be there, right? One of the things for me is this concept of reconciliation ecology, where if you think about, like, you know, typical ecology is like, conservation, where it's like, okay, we're going to keep it, we're not going to touch it, like that's this beautiful, pristine thing. Or restoration, where it's like, no, we're going to make it go back to exactly how it was, but still hand of man going in. But we're going to make it seem restore it to what it was. Reconciliation ecology is this idea that how do we create spaces that are good for both humans and wildlife. And so, like, something like a green roof is something like that, where it's clearly a man-made structure, but we can put plants on roofs, and we can create a space for flyover. We can add wildlife corridors. Bring people in to visit, so that they can also have this amazing experience in nature, or even just looking out at nature. But we're doing it in sort of a man-made built environment within the urban environment. And so that's what I see as the challenge, as what's so fun. How can I create places that are outside, that people want to hang out in?
So are these public spaces that you're focusing on, or are these private?
Yeah, for me, it's mostly, I did a small stint doing residential gardens. Most landscape architects, very few landscape architects actually do residential gardens. Most of them focus on the public realm, or large scale private, parking lots or campuses, or, big parks, that sort of. For me, where I am right now, I do a lot of stuff on campus. So I mentioned the courtyard that we have, that's all been student design built projects, like one year after another, working in that and creating this space, adding hammocks and creating some place that students want to be. We built these follies this year that were these cool steel structures that, one of them the students designed, but one has a swinging bench, and one has like a picnic table with little swings on it, and then there's an area that you can climb, that's sort of like, there's no real reason for them. They're just these cool structures that we've added to the side of the building, to a place where no one ever hung out and no one spent time in. And now it's always busy, people are always hanging out there. And then same thing with the sheep, is temporary exhibit, but what I do is bring sheep out to, under this guise of mowing lawns, but we're also bringing out picnic blankets and shade umbrellas and chairs. And I've got 25 interns that work with me. And so we're engaging people with activities. So you can come in watercolor with the sheep, or you can do felting with the sheep, or, we have stickers, we have informational. So that, and ideally talking about doing this like before exams and creating it as a place to relax and have lunch and hang out, and really transforming urban spaces, mostly ideally public, so that people can really enjoy that.
Wow. Yeah, that just sounds like so much fun. Do you love your job?
I actually do. I never thought that I would be an academic, which I guess is nuts. But what is so cool about it is I get to sort of pursue what it is that I want to do, and make it happen. And it fits under the guise of research. I mean, the sheep thing is just like this funny story where when I was working at the Arboretum on campus, I had read that story about the sheep in the Eiffel Tower, and I was like, oh my God, we should do this on campus. And everyone like that I worked with was like, oh, and, patted me on the head and was like, oh, that's a sweet idea. Like, go Haven.
Uh-huh.
And, you're so creative. And then I became a professor, and I was hired in this position. And suddenly this was research. And, I'm looking at sort of the mental health aspects of it. And I'm studying, how efficient are they at mowing grass? And, and suddenly I get to do this, and I get to figure out how to make it happen. And I'm bringing in students, so that to me, to be to come up with these kind of schemes and just do them is unbelievable. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and this is a real formal project now, right? It's called the UC Davis Sheep Mower Project, and for people that are interested, they can go to sheepmowers.org
That's
to learn
it.
all about it.
Or follow us on Instagram.
Okay.
We're so close to getting 5,000 followers
How
at
many?
UC Davis _sheep mowers. We're at like 4,950.
4,950 people follow the sheep mowers on Instagram. That probably rivals some celebrities and famous people.
It's still pretty low. It's all student run. And so it's landscape architects who have incredible drawing and graphic skills. And so, it's not just photos of sheep.
Is this a kind of first in the country that's an example for other universities and municipalities?
That is my goal. We've done it here on campus. They did University of Massachusetts, did UMass, EWE Mass, and they brought out the sheep a few times, and then haven't really followed it up. What I would love to do is start programs. I think on the website we sort of we go through kind of the process that I went through to do that, so that other universities could do it. But no, it hasn't quite caught on yet. It's a pilot program.
Still new, right?
This is our year 5th grazing season.
Okay. And how many sheep are involved?
Well, so what's cool is we're using sheep that we already have on campus, right? So we've got a really strong vet school and animal science program here. So we have a sheep barn with it's like 300 sheep. Yeah. And so I get to borrow 25 sheep at a time. And we take the sheep, they're on the other side of the highway. They hop in a trailer. We bring them over to whatever location we're mowing. And then they come for 3 days at a time. So they go home at night, but come in the morning at like 9, stay until 3, mow the lawns, and then get to go hang out.
Win-win, right?
They get to eat. They become a little more socialized. We get to use them for fertilizing, for lawn mowing, and engagement.
Is UC Davis special in this way? I can't imagine you'd be able to do this at UChicago or Columbia.
Yeah, it's special in this way. I think part of it is that it's a land grant university. And so the mission of land grant universities is to sort of share research and innovation with the public, especially relating to land and agricultural schools. So I think it is positioned well for that. But any number of other land grant universities that I think would be really good and well.
Does this mean in the city of San Francisco we could start seeing sheep somewhere?
Yes, that is my goal. And this is a good to mention this. So Frederick Law Olmsted is known as the father of landscape architecture. And he is the man with Vaux who did Central Park in New York City. So in New York City, there is a place called Sheep Meadow. And it's this big, they've got concerts there, people hang out in the summer, it's wonderful. But when Olmsted designed it, he actually designed it to be maintained by sheep. That was how all of his parks, so Central Park, Prospect Park in Brooklyn, the Boston Common, all of these Frederick Law Olmsted parks were designed to be maintained by sheep. And so you can go and find these amazing pictures of sheep and people roaming the thing. So my goal is to bring sheep back to Sheep Meadow in Central Park, and to do that in 2026. So the fall of 2026, because it is also like the UN's International Year of Rangeland and Pastoralists. So it's all about grazing animals and transhumans and, moving animals around, and the importance of shepherds and all of that. So sheep to sheep meadow is the goal in Central Park.
So to do something like that, like, where are you going to get sheep for Central Park?
So you borrow them, school. We borrow them from someone in Long Island or Connecticut, from a farmer who has sheep. We bring them in. And ideally, I mean, what I've learned is that it's a lot easier to bring them in daily rather than having them spend the night. So if you have them spend the night, then you need to have guardian dogs, you need to have shelter, you need to do all of this stuff. But if you're just bringing them in, half an hour, 45-minute drive, you can do this. You bring them in. What's very cool about Sheep Meadow is that they actually close it during the winter. People, they want it to regenerate, so they kind of put it to bed, leave it, and with snow and wet and people, it's terrible. So it's fenced. So you would just need to add an interior perimeter of electric fence, and you don't have people in there anyway. So you bring the sheep in like October, November, right before they close it. The sheep have these amazing little hooves that actually help aerate the soil. They're fertilizing the soil, with this, they do their thing. And then they're cutting back any vegetation. They leave and then go. And so, yeah, there's figuring out the transportation. The biggest thing is getting the permission. And that is through, I know people at sort of New York City parks, but it turns out that it's not necessarily New York City parks, it's the Central Park Conservancy. That they hold all the big, it's a nonprofit that runs Central Park. So they're the people that I need to get in touch with, is to figure out. And so far, I've been like back and forth with them, and they keep saying, oh, you should get a scientific permit, which is not what I need. This is where I need my, Exeter networking. It's the high level people.
Okay, so put the call out there. What do you need? Who do you need? What would help? Put the call out.
Call. Anyone who knows anyone important in New York City. Anyone who's on the board of the Central Park Conservancy. Anyone who donates to the arts, or knows people, has those connections. That is what I am looking for. I was already, when you asked me who I was going to have dinner with, living, to say that I wanted to crowdsource. I want to have someone from Exeter, who knows the right people in Central Park that could get me an in.
Okay, well,
that's my networking dinner.
I hope everyone who hears this will reach out, and at the end we'll make sure we get your contact info, and we'll figure out how to get people in touch with you. This idea that you work in the Department of Human Ecology at UC Davis is so interesting to me, especially in 2025 when we're talking about the impact of digital on our kids and on our own psychological profiles as human beings. Where do you see us moving forward between now and, let's say, the next 20, 25 years, when we're really old people? Like, where is this all going? Where are we going to be with the relationship with the environment and space, indoor, outdoor space, the way that we're using natural resources and so on? We had John Gorley on, who's a geologist. He talked a little bit about, global warming. I don't know that I published that piece of the conversation. It's such a big topic. So we don't need to solve for climate change right now. I'm curious if you have thoughts about the role of all of this in the larger conversation.
I mean, honestly, like, my approach to it is that there's so much doom and gloom, and there's so much what we should be doing and how we should to stop. It's all sticks as opposed to carrots. And so my approach to it is, again, how do we make it engaging and fun? And how do we make sustainability something that's chic? That's it's something that people want to do, as opposed to feel like they have to do. Like using sheep as lawnmowers. I mean, not that everyone's going to be able to do that. For Earth Day last year, we actually had a mow off where it was sheep versus electric lawnmowers. So that was really fun. Like, these are two options that aren't your gas lawnmower. And it was a mow off, and we could see them, do their thing. So things like that, and talking about like bringing in biodiversity or using native plants and really thinking about it that way, but doing it in a way that is beautiful and engaging and creating these spaces that people love. Like, look at the High Line, for example. Those are all plants that are native to the region and so well designed and such a cool space to be. I mean, it's always crowded. It's always just full. People want to see the changing of the seas. That's a tourist destination. And even people who live there will go and walk parts of it because it's such a cool space. So for me, I feel like that's how we do it is by creating that, like using less resources, incorporating sustainable practices, embracing ecology in urban areas, but doing it not in this, I'm so sick of shaming people. I mean, it's just awful, and being called out for what you're doing wrong and being told that, you have to do this, and just terrifying people about what's going to happen. Like, yeah, I think we all know that. But I mean, I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, working on a book right now and that's going to be focused on like front yard gardens. And so there's lots and lots of talk these days about lawn conversion. Lawns are so terrible because they use so much fertilizer, and your mower uses so much gas and is releasing so the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And I mean, all of this stuff, and it's a monoculture. And so where's your biodiversity? My thing is, like, I don't want to write about a book, why lawns are bad. That's been done, and we all know that we shouldn't have to do it. But what I want to do is show, like, this, it's like, what can we do instead, and show people these gorgeous conversions where they're turned into gardens that are community spaces, or that harvest rainwater, that become spectacles, that grow food, but not in this like hippie Berkeley, Madison, Wisconsin sort of way, like messy and no one wants those, right? I'm really focused on making these just absolutely stunning, fun, engaging spaces that then people are like, okay, like, I want to be in that. I will spend money on that. And wow, I'm spending money, but I'm spending money not on a lawn because my neighbor does it, but I'm spending money on these really cool plants that are gorgeous because my neighbor has those and they look so amazing. And how can I do that? And so that's where I think we start to make a difference, because I don't like all of the negativity.
Right.
It's fun and beautiful, but hey, we're also doing a good thing.
Yeah. It's great to get your perspective on that. There is a bit of a doom and gloom atmosphere surrounding the entire topic.
And it's interesting, like you mentioned, the human ecology department that I'm in. And we've definitely struggled with what even is human ecology, and how do the three programs that are in it, how do we even relate to each other? The people in human development are studying preschoolers and aging, and then we're like, oh, we're looking at gardens and fire, and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But like, for example, we have one of the, like, a lab preschool on campus, where students in human development will work with the kids, and it's this amazing program. They had like an empty play space that they want to turn into a garden and convert. And it worked out that it was this great space where we could bring the sheep, let them cut back the vegetation. All of the kids were invited to come and hang out, and see the sheep, which they absolutely loved. And then, we're talking about, oh, can we do a study looking at the parents? And does having the sheep, the parents that are dropping off their kids, and does having the sheep there help de-stress them? And, and so we're doing that and helping like reduce that, and, working together, but also getting these kids when they're 3 and 4 to think, oh yeah, of course it's natural to have just sheep out in yards. And this is an interesting way to do. Talking about maintenance, how important it is to not just, like, as a designer, one of my the things that landscape architects do is we do our design, we put our thing, and then we walk away. And we don't talk about the fact that the cool part for me about landscape architecture is that everything is alive and it's going to get bigger and better and grow. But we need to start educating about the need to understand maintenance, and that you have to go in, and that it's not like architecture, Louis Kahn library, where you kind of like, it's done, best day of the building is the first day it's built, and then it starts to fall apart. For us, it keeps getting better and better, but only if we put in sort of the work to that.
Mm-hmm. That is so inspiring. I can't wait to see your book. How far away are you from this book on
Oh,
front lawn?
it's still full on book proposals. We've got a book.
Really?
Yeah, it's what the very cool thing is that I'm working with a garden photographer named Saxon Holt, who is like a really well-known garden photographer. So we have pretty pictures. We'll have these very cool pictures,
Right.
and the idea is that it's bringing in some of the academia, but not too much, but lots and lots of inspirational images and ideas, and sort of messing around this concept that like I've been sort of, I don't know, that I came up with, that I'm kind of obsessed with, on multifunctionality, that's called Nature Heals.
Okay.
And HEALS is an acronym for these 5 principles that I think need to go into every garden. And so it's health, engagement, aesthetics, labor, and sustainability. And so those are the aspects that I think every garden really needs to include within it, or, with a focus, maybe more focus on one or the other, but really thinking about anytime you're creating these spaces, how do you think about, health being like that nature RX? How do you, being outside, and how can you, add to that, creating green space in urban areas?
Right.
Engagement, bringing people in and getting them excited about the space. Aesthetics, because things are beautiful, and we want to make it, again, beautiful, wonderful. Labor, as I was mentioning, the importance of maintenance. Who's doing the labor? Let's plan for it. Let's also make it engaging. I have weeding meetings where if I'm meeting with a student, I make them come outside and weed with me. I make my classes come out and weed and do maintenance with, so I'm trying to normalize it. This is something of what we do. And then finally, this aspect of sustainability, and how do we incorporate like ecological principles, biodiversity, sustainable materials into all of these things in a way that just works with it. That's not the primary driver.
I am very inspired by that, Haven. I live in the suburbs. I grew up in the suburbs, mowing lawns.
Yeah.
I used to do lawns around the neighborhood for $5 back in the day,
Right.
when $5 could get you more than just half of a sandwich, if it can get you that now. And I hate my lawn. I really do. Like I think the whole sod grass, irrigation, the entire kind of thing I'm locked into by owning a home is awful. One of our friends from Exeter, Alec Randall, he had a family member that had a place they have on Fry Island in Maine,
Mm-hmm.
which I was lucky enough to go to a long time ago. And he replaced the lawn with wildflower seeds. He just threw wildflower seeds out there. And I think once or twice a year, he has to mow it all the way down, and
Yeah.
then comes way back again. And I've always thought, wow, what a cool thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, it is. And especially, sort of the East Coast, it's a lot easier to do successfully. It's hard. You can do, I do wildflower meadows all the time. One of my favorite projects that I'm working on a paper about right now was called the Seed Pile Project, where what we did was, it was like community science, citizen science project, where I partnered with this guy who he has a landscape design company, like landscape architecture firm, but he also, his PhD in ecology. And essentially what we did was give away free packets of wildflower seeds. And the seeds were all local ecotypes. I mean, they came from, within the Central Valley where we are, like actually had been grown here, not just like, California poppy seeds from China. So they were from here. And then what the participants would do was go into an urban area, and so we started with like any human built area, but then focused on transit corridors. So bus stops, alleyways, sidewalks, all these places, and just dump their seeds. and not maintain them, not put them anywhere, literally on a sidewalk, and then come back every month to see what was growing. And that was fascinating because there's something about wildflowers
Mm,
that is also, again, it's like stopping for sheep on the side of the road. You see a
mm.
poppy growing through a crack in the sidewalk, and you're like, oh my God, or you want to come back and see, like, oh my, is my pile growing? Is anything coming? And so we've got these amazing images of all sorts of like wildflowers coming up through cracks, and growing in places where there's all sorts of like construction debris and garbage, but you've got clarkia and you've got lupin and poppies that are all just sort of coming through in these super dense urban areas, with this idea of, yeah, what are some plants, what are native plants that are contributing to biodiversity, but that won't need to be maintained, that we don't have to go in and mow and irrigate and do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's the goal for us is why are we spending money, pouring water on the lawn? It seems really silly. And then, of course, we're one of millions of front lawns here in the Bay Area and all across California and the West Coast.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of folks out here that will transform their front yards and their backyards into hardscapes. What do you think
Yeah, or
about that?
gravel. It's awful.
Okay.
It makes me so sad. I mean, some hardscape is fine, but the ones where they take everything out, they put down the weed fabric, and then they cover the whole thing with gravel, and then
Hmm.
maybe like 5 plants come out.
Okay.
It's so bad
Okay.
because essentially what you're doing is that weed barrier, that plastic, is heating up the soil, and it's destroying all of the microbes, all of the good things, every like mycorrhizal, like fungal network that
Mm.
you've got in there, destroying the soil, sterilizing it. Fine, you don't get weeds. But then also you've got this gravel. A lot of the times it's like a dark gravel, and that is this huge heat sink. And so thinking about that, that's like adding to the urban heat island effect, because the sun is just like hitting that gravel
Okay.
and it's absorbing it, and it's getting hotter and hotter, and then it's re-radiating it so that at night it's even hot. The whole thing, what's so cool about plants is that you've got evapotranspiration going on, and so they're transpiring and giving off water into the air, and so that's helping to cool temperatures. So like photovoltaics, like solar panels, actually work better if there are plants surrounding them, because the plants will help. They work most efficiently at sort of like a set temperature, and when it gets too hot they don't work as well. If you've got the plants and you can cool that temperature in places like Davis or Pleasanton,
Yeah.
then that'll help them work more efficiently.
I didn't know that, because there's so many beautiful homes around here that have made those investments. There was one around the corner from the kids' school where it was just beautiful. And it was pretty much all hardscape. And you'll see a lot of homes where they'll create these faux creeks in the front lawn with gravel and rocks, and, big rocks are brought in. To me, it was like, oh, great. They don't have a water bill. They're doing something good. But you're saying be careful, make
Be
sure
careful
it's a
too
plant
much.
forward,
Yeah. I mean, there's
plant forward
nothing like,
design.
and if those faux creeks actually like captured water, I mean, so this is what's so cool is that like you can have those set up so that like the downspout from your roof, instead of going directly into like the road and going into a drain system, you can disconnect that so that it'll go into this creek, and the sort of bioswale rain garden. And then what you're doing, that water is then like recharging the groundwater, below, which is a great thing to do, but it's also slowing the water down. It's doing all this stuff so that you're not putting that directly into your storm system. So if you do that, and it's making this creek actually, this fake creek actually have some purpose,
Hmm.
as opposed to this like stupid little fake thing.
Mhm.
I mean, there's one of them in Davis where it looks like it's coming out, like sprouting from the base of a tree,
Yeah.
but it's like the whole purpose of a creek is to like move water. It's
Yeah.
not like there's a spring at the base of the tree.
There's one I'll give you that I know you're gonna just hate. I saw a family out on the corner take out all the green of their front lawn
Yeah.
and they concreted it over.
Yeah.
And then they built a small planter in the middle.
Yes.
It's like that can't be
It's the
good.
same thing with AstroTurf. I'm sure you're the fake
Well, I
grass.
have fake grass. I bought this house and there was fake grass all around it, around the
Mhm.
pool.
Yeah.
which means there's not like grass and stuff in the pool, right?
Right.
Which makes it
Which is,
cleaner to swim. But that's what we have. And I have my little puppy now,
yeah.
and we lament all the time. And one of the things Ramona wants to do is put some real biodiversity back here, and we need to figure out what to do. Maybe you can come over, Haven, for a barbecue and just come hang
I'm
out with us
very
for a
good at
while
giving solutions.
and tell us what to do.
Yeah, the fake lawn has got to go.
Yeah.
That's also increasing temperatures, destroying the soil.
Mhm.
You have to like to cool it down. It gets really hot.
Well,
So like
it's super hot. You can't
super
work
hot.
on
So
it.
you have to hose it, end up
Yeah.
using as much water.
Yeah.
And like if your dog's using it,
Right.
to pee on and stuff, you have to hose it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no AstroTurf.
No, it's
I would
actually
be good,
very hot to walk on when we have our hot days out, when we're trying to get in
right?
and out of the pool. And
Yeah.
if you are on the AstroTurf, you will burn your foot.
Exactly it.
Yeah.
And whereas you could do like a mow free turf, like no mow, just clump grasses that
Okay.
you can have if you
Okay.
want to, but they
Okay. I love it. So you're now invited over. You're not that far away. Bring your kids over. Let's get in the pool. We'll have Marshall over too. I was so happy to be able to speak to him earlier this week. He lives
so
in the
fun.
area. So whoever Exonians
Yeah, they're having that
nearby,
Washington D.C. reunion, right? Like,
yeah,
what's our West Coast
right on. Yeah,
party
exactly.
at your place?
Yeah, absolutely. Come on over. We'll do Punjabi kebabs on the grill.
Right? And I'll give lawn conversion advice.
And I will take dictation from you about what to do with our backyard. I know Ramona would love to meet you and talk to you about it. And yeah, it sounds like a plan. Sometime this summer we'll figure something out. I would love to do that. Now you're really inspiring me. I love to feed. I have my cooking blog if you haven't seen it.
Oh, no kidding, which I haven't like tried yet. I'm still
Oh,
not quite,
I
but
am
I'm very
I am
excited.
way behind on posting there, but I will get back to that. So I love feeding. I love having people over. I love entertaining and having a hot climate home and being able to have people over during the summer in the pool is like a super fun,
Yeah,
right?
that is nice.
Super fun, especially for the kids. So that is an open invitation to you, Haven. And my God, it's so fun to talk to you and to catch up and to hear about your life. It's just been amazing. There are a few minutes left before we're going to close. I'm happy to ask the question that sounds like you wanted to answer about living or not. Whom would you want to have dinner with? And then I have one other question after
Yeah,
that.
give me the other one because basically the who I want to have dinner with, I want to use my Exeter network. I want someone that can help me get to the people, or maybe there's someone on the board at the
Yeah.
Central Park Conservancy. Like it was so impressive listening to Sean's. Every other person that he mentioned was someone who had gone to Exeter. Oh yeah, and so then I met him, and he was at Exeter.
Well,
I know
I
it's not the same,
sure.
but I feel like some of these fancy people with their
Yeah.
venture capital,
Private
whatever,
equity.
yeah, private equity,
Uh-huh.
they're donating to Central Park Conservancy.
Okay. Well, one of the many goals of this podcast is, in fact, to connect one another to resources, to move non-Sibi forward, to move knowledge and goodness forward, to move Exonians forward in their journeys and missions, whether they're in this class or not. So I hope the class is hearing that and will reach out to Haven to get the goats out in Central Park.
The sheep.
I'm sorry.
Okay, wait. So I have to explain this because this is the thing. Okay, so goats are browsers. Goats will pull anything up from the roots.
Okay.
They will eat wires. They will climb trees.
Okay.
They will try and escape. So goats are really good for like hillsides and like cutting down like fire prone vegetation, all of that stuff. Sheep are grazers. So sheep keep their head down. They don't pull things up from the roots. They just cut very nicely. They're social animals, so they want to hang out with each other. And so they're not going to try and escape. They're not trying to eat anything. I mean, they'll eat the weeds and stuff, but they just heads down, cutting like a lawnmower. So that's why, for my purposes, mostly for, it's slightly more maintained lawn kind of things, sheep are the answer.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. I'm sorry. I'm such an urban animal. Do I know the difference between a goat and a sheep? Probably not if I had to like pick them out of a crowd. But thanks for clarifying. It's an important point. So for all you connected folks, please reach out. And so Haven, how can people reach you?
So, I am on the UC Davis website. I mean, if you just look up Haven Kiers and human ecology or landscape architecture, environmental design, I am there. And I'm just Kiers at ucdavis.edu. So
Okay.
please,
Kiers at
yep,
ucdavis.edu, because your
yeah,
real name is Anna, right?
yes, and that's a whole other story that I go by my middle name, and then I went and did the exact same thing to both of my kids, and now they both go by their middle
Oh,
names.
okay. You want to
Yeah.
know what my middle name is?
Yes.
Kumar.
Oh, so good. Can I tell you? Kumar is the name of the 4-H pig. My 14-year-old just started.
That's not what I was looking for.
I know you thought it was going to be something different,
Well,
but no, his name is Kumar, and then my little kid, my son's pig is Ralph. So we have Ralph and Kumar.
okay. That's not what I wanted to hear. But you know how Sam Brown's in the movie business in LA, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
one of Sam's projects was the whole Harold and Kumar series. Yeah,
But that was before,
long
so
time
it's
ago.
like continuing on.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's happening with that anymore, but if Sam's hearing this, I definitely want to get Sam on the
Yeah,
podcast.
he
A
needs
lot of
to come
people have
on.
asked for him. We got to talk about the Harold and Kumar movie series. When I go to Starbucks, that's my Starbucks name.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine's
It's
Anna.
a lot easier to spell. People have heard it before. Thanks to Sam, it's been socialized in American culture and people can kind of relate to it.
Yeah.
It's only taken me most of my life to get to a place where a presidential candidate shares my first name. And so, journalists are now starting to say it correctly. But Kumar is an easy one. So, if I had to do it over again, maybe I'd do the same as you, go and use my middle name.
I don't know. But I can't even, yeah, I can't, I don't even have Haven as a Starbucks name because I'm always called Heaven. Every
Heaven.
time,
Oh,
Heaven.
that's nice. Okay. So people can reach you at your email address, and I'll post your websites to this podcast page so that they
Awesome.
can look it up there. And then last question, who from our class would you want to see on this podcast? Who do you nominate?
I want Demetrius Karabatsos
Okay.
just because I have not heard anything about him from him in years. And when I was, yeah, that I know that that's one of those questions that you ask. And I was just like, that's who I want to hear about.
Yeah. Demetrios Karabatsos. How are we going to find him?
No contact, no information. Someone must.
So I think I'm going to be able to find him for you. Matt or Will or Dave Park
Right?
can
Yeah.
find him for us. Demet, if you're hearing this, we need you. We want to figure out where you've been, what you've been up to, right? Right. So Demetrios, you have been nominated. I have a feeling we can find him. I have a feeling we'll be able to find him, but he needs to come on. So okay, outstanding. We will try to find him and get him and plus everybody else. I think, whoever's interested, come on. We want to hear from everybody eventually, all in due course. So this has been super fun at Haven or Heaven. It's been super fun.
Exactly.
Super, super fun. And I thank you for giving me a recording that will require just a minimal amount of editing, and I'll be able to push it out there to the world. And I can't wait for people to see this one.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I
So
was
fun.
very excited. My whole family knows that I'm very, very excited.
I'm glad to hear that. Sean mentioned his daughter really enjoyed hearing their episode. And so the reverberations from these little works of art, if I could call them that, little digital works of art, are kind of we're just beginning to see those, and so it's exciting for me.
So
good. All right, well, you know where to find me, and time you're in Pleasanton, give me a ping or text.
Likewise, as you're driving to Tahoe, because no one goes to Davis, but if you're on your way to Tahoe, stop by Davis.
So nice to see you, Haven. Good to see you. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.